In February 1983, a young man named Don Decker walked out of a Pennsylvania jail cell on a brief weekend furlough. He was 21 years old and had been granted leave to attend the funeral of his grandfather. This should have been a quiet time for mourning and reflection in the small town of Stroudsburg. Instead, it became the start of one of the most baffling paranormal accounts in local history. The funeral was a heavy affair. Don had a complicated relationship with his grandfather, who many later claimed had been a source of deep trauma for the boy. After the service, Don went to stay with friends named Bob and Jeannie Kiefer. As they sat in the living room that evening, the atmosphere changed. Don began to feel an intense, localized chill. He described it as if the air around him had suddenly turned to ice. He fell into a deep trance, staring blankly ahead. Suddenly, water began to drip from the ceiling. It was not a leak from a broken pipe. The water was not just falling down. It was materializing out of thin air. It sprayed horizontally across the room. It bubbled up from the floor. Jeannie Kiefer called her landlord to report a plumbing disaster, but when the man arrived, he found something that defied logic. The water seemed to be coming from the walls themselves, yet the pipes were perfectly dry. The police were called to the scene. Officers Richard Walbert and John Borgen arrived expecting a domestic dispute or a simple flood. What they found stayed with them for the rest of their lives. They saw water droplets forming on the ceiling and flying across the room as if being thrown by an invisible hand. Officer Walbert later noted that he felt a sense of dread that he could not explain. He watched as the water defied gravity, moving in ways that no physical leak ever could. The group eventually moved to a local pizzeria, hoping that leaving the house would stop the phenomenon. It did not. As soon as Don sat down at a table, the rain began inside the restaurant. The owner, terrified by the sight of water falling on her customers from a dry ceiling, suspected something dark was at play. She took a crucifix from behind the counter and pressed it against Don. According to witnesses, the metal burned his skin as if it were red hot, leaving a physical mark on his chest. When Don finally returned to jail after his furlough ended, the mystery did not stay in Stroudsburg. It followed him behind bars. His cellmates and the prison guards began to report the same impossible events. Water would saturate his bedding and drip from the stone ceiling of the jail. The warden, initially a skeptic, was forced to acknowledge that something was happening when he saw the moisture himself. A prison chaplain was eventually called in to perform an intervention. During a meeting with the Reverend William Blackburn, the situation reached a breaking point. The air in the room reportedly filled with a foul smell that the Reverend described as the scent of rotting meat. Don appeared to be in physical pain, his body contorting as if he were being attacked by something unseen. The Reverend prayed over him, and after a period of intense struggle, the rain stopped. It never returned. Skeptics have looked at this case for decades, searching for a rational explanation. They suggest it might have been a mass delusion or an elaborate hoax involving hidden sprayers, though no evidence of such devices was ever found by the police or the jailers. Others believe the trauma of his grandfather's death triggered a psychokinetic event, where Don's internal emotional turmoil manifested as physical rain. Whatever the cause, the testimony of 9 different witnesses, including law enforcement and religious leaders, remains on the record. Don Decker moved on with his life, but he remained forever known as the man who brought the storm inside. Don't forget to tune in next week for more spooky tales.